Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple Show. I am Dr. Bart. I'm your host. Today, a phenomenal conversation. We are going to discuss energy. And hands down, this is the number one most requested entity when it comes to health. We want more of it. We wonder where it comes from. We're always seeking it. And the beauty is, if you have plenty of energy, you get to experience life in a better fashion. So today, I'm going to help everyone understand if you don't have energy, the three reasons that one of these three reasons could be one of them or all three of them. The reason you do not have energy, you can get to work on those things right away. I'm going to do my absolute best as usual to simplify energy for us. And when we think about energy, before I get into those three things, I want to first kind of map out for you. We'll go into a little science and anatomy for just a moment here, because I think it's important to help us all recognize that our creators created a masterpiece when they made our bodies. They literally did. And I think sometimes we lose sight of how brilliant and how intelligent the human body really is, and especially when it comes to energy. So when it comes to energy, our bodies are literally energy-making machines. We have roughly about 3 trillion cells in the human body. It's a lot of cells. And inside every one of those cells, and just follow along with me for a moment here, this is the anatomy part. Inside of every one of those cells is something called your mitochondria. Mitochondria, that word has been given a lot of, kind of pep, a lot of talk over the last couple of years about how important mitochondria is in terms of longevity, in terms of enjoying life and being a strong, good, healthy human being. Inside the mitochondria is something called the Krebs cycle. And I want to talk about that in just a moment. Let's back up to the mitochondria just for a moment, because this is what we refer to as the powerhouse of the human body. This is where energy is ultimately made. Inside the mitochondria, it utilizes something called the Krebs cycle, which some of you might remember way back in the day. I want to say as early as like high school, we started having conversations about the Krebs cycle, and that the Krebs cycle, its end product, produces something called ATP. And that is what the human body uses for energy. So we have 3 trillion cells, and almost every single one of them has something called mitochondria and a Krebs cycle that your body uses every single day to help make you energy. Now, with that being said, if you don't have energy, if you are running out of steam at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day for that matter, then that means there's something deficient. There's something going on in your body. And I'm going to walk you through the 3 things that if you don't have energy, it's one of these 3 things. And the beauty is we're going to simplify it and say, all right, let's go to work here. And I'll give you some examples of what things to do and what things to kind of stay away from. So let's back up and just kind of have a quick conversation about mitochondria. I think this is important. We've discovered that our mitochondria really is where, we call this the powerhouse of the human body. This is where energy is made. And conversely, as we go through this thing called life, if we are breaking down our mitochondria, that is the fastest way to age. So in the event that we could be supportive and help our mitochondria be healthy, be strong, essentially stay together, as the mitochondria start to unfold, that ultimately is the aging process. And let's go a little deeper than that as well. Many of us at least have heard or often are thinking about, well, what are my genes made up of? What is my genetic coding? Do I have a gene for, do I have it for diabetes? Do I have it for breast cancer? Do I have a gene for Alzheimer's? Do I have genetic coding for different things? And the answer is, there's a good likelihood that you have a gene for some disease out there. It's not even a likelihood, you do, let's put it that way. And you've also heard the saying, if you haven't, it's important to understand this, that our genes are what load the gun, but it is our lifestyle that actually pulls the trigger. So just because you have the genetic code for something does not mean that it'll be expressed. Although we do have to pay attention to what we're doing with our lifestyle, because within that mitochondria, that DNA structure is what holds those genetic codes. And if we break down our mitochondria through poor lifestyle, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, if we break down these mitochondria, that is when we start to express these genetic codes. And it might be for dementia or Parkinson's, or it might be for breast cancers. But it's not until we break them down that those genes get to express themselves. So with that being said, let's keep this in mind. 3 trillion cells in the human body, all of which have a mitochondria and all of which have something called the Krebs cycle. Certain parts of our body have a little bit more mitochondria and other parts don't have as much. But nonetheless, your body is an energy making machine. So now let's talk about the Krebs cycle for just a moment. So this is going to make a lot more sense as I talk about the three things. If you don't have energy, there are three reasons that's true. So let's understand the Krebs cycle first. Again, I want to simplify this for you. So the best to your kind of imagination, follow me along here. The Krebs cycle takes in the nutrients you bring into your body, takes in like your B vitamins, B1, B2, B6, brings these in, B12. It takes these all in and starts to stir them up. Vitamin A, vitamin C. It takes in the nutrients that you're bringing into your body and it stirs them all up. And yes, I'm absolutely oversimplifying this. It brings them through all these biochemical reactions. It takes in oxygen, which is a major component of this. It takes in oxygen, which is a nutrient, and all of these other vitamins and nutrients that we hear about so frequently. It brings in all these different nutrients, stirs them all up, and it produces something called ATP. And if that system is in place and you have the tools, meaning your mitochondria is the tool to make the energy, and you have the nutrients being brought in so the tools can do their job, then you can produce energy. So that's a little oversight of thinking about how does the body do it. You have 3 trillion soldiers going to work for you every single day with one goal in mind, to help you make energy. Why does it want you to make so much energy? It wants you to be able to repair, restore, and kind of invent how your body works on any given day. So that repairing process, for the most part, is going to take place while you sleep. The restoring process, for the most part, is going to take place while you sleep. And each day that you get to get up and have energy, you get to have the opportunity to have more experiences, and then the cycle begins again. What else do we need to keep up with this pace? Many of us will start to say things in our lives and start to use phrases like this: I'm too busy. And when I recognize, especially, as a healthcare practitioner, I've been sitting in the front row for the last 27 years, 3 decades now, sitting in the front row and recognizing and listening and observing people and the words that they use, the comments that they have, and also the habits and let's just say, the observations of looking at what they're doing with their lifestyles, myself included. And what I recognize is that we start to say things like we're too busy when we don't have the energy to do other things. So maybe you had a long day at work, and instead of going out with your friends, you're too busy because your long day of work is just too exhausting to do it. Or on a simpler day-to-day component, you might say, I'm too busy to prep food. But the reality is there's a person to your right or to your left of you that actually is just as busy as you in terms of their schedule, yet they have the energy to do those things. So if we want to be able to do more in life and experience more, then the reality is that we're going to have more energy and more passion. And the passion will only happen when we have the energy to do so. And again, your creators made you essentially perfectly. Me too. And I think that part of our role, I think we've lost sight of this sometimes, that we were made in the perfect light, and it's time for us to start to recognize that we have all that we need, and our job might be just to supply the human body, our vessel, our soul, with the things it needs to do to continue to express itself on the highest level, of which, by the way, I call beast mode. So the idea here that we are going to move toward literally having a strong body, a clear mind, and a free spirit. And all of those have a little different definitions, but literally a strong body, clear mind, and a free spirit. And that is what I define as beast mode. And if we are operating in beast mode, then we get to have the best experiences. And I think it's a big thank you to our creator for the gift of this thing we call life. All right, so let's dive into it. So if you don't, by the way, have the amount of energy that you want every single day, you're not able to go after all the things you want to do and have an experience in life, then listen closely, because there's so many good, and I'm going to say they're simple in concept. I don't know that simple always means easy. They get easy as we practice them and as we continue to make them daily habits. So number one is this: if you're lacking energy, one of the top reasons is that you are tired. So let me give you all 3 here. It's tired. You're either tired, you are toxic, or you're deficient. And now let's break these down and help us understand exactly what each one of these means and where we can make some changes. More than likely, you're experiencing at least one of these, if not all three. Even if you feel like you have a lot of energy and you make improvements in these three categories, your world will change because you will be able to experiencing this thing we call life a little bit better, a little bit more to the fullest extent. You will be able to say yes more often without being tired, without being exhausted. All right, number one, let's talk about sleep for a second here. When it comes to sleep, there's really two things. More often than not, we have to look, if we don't have energy, we have to address the sleep component of this. We repair, we recover while we sleep. This is your body replenishing all the nutrients back into the muscles, back into the tissues, the organs, the brain. This happens when we sleep. So there's two components of this, of being tired, because this is the big part of being energy deficient. The number one is sleep. And there's two parts of this. One, we're not allowing or allocating enough time. I know this sounds silly. And I was guilty of this for decades, quite frankly, where I thought that 5 or 6 hours a night, no big deal. I got up, I was a motivated young man, and I would be able to get up and do this over and over again. We recognize now that, yes, you get away with it because you have so many powerhouses working for you, mitochondria. But over time, as those mitochondria get tired, that is the aging process. So time allocation is one of the most important things. We'll get to the second part of this because it's actually more relevant. So if you're not allowing 7.5, 8.5 hours, that's probably what makes most people fully vibrant, completely restore and rehabilitate their bodies through the course of sleep. That allows us to get into what we call parasympathetic activity. That's repair, replenish, rebuild. If you're not allowing for that time, even if you really think you're stuck on the fact that you just don't need it, I'll encourage you to at least experience, and that is part of how we get healthier. Experience what happens if you did have 7.5 hours. If you did a lot of the time, could you be a more productive human being during the day because you had more energy? You had a stronger body. Your mind was more clear and your spirit was more free. So if those things are happening as a result of just getting more sleep, it's well worth getting to bed a little bit earlier. So the second part of this thing, as we dive a little bit deeper into sleep, we really want to make an observation of deep sleep. That is truly when we replenish, especially the physical body. So in this conversation, you might be thinking, well, Doc, how about all the other things? What about hormone imbalances or hot flashes or eating late at night or blood sugar imbalances? Those are all coming, and those are all part of number 2 and number 3. That's part of being toxic, and it's part of being deficient. But all of these, if we're having any sleep issues, that means that we have to work on our ability to sleep first. So we are tired, and therefore we need to help the sleeping component. So that's number one, and really what we're looking at. When it comes to deep sleep, some of you have what we call wearables nowadays. You might have an Oura ring, you might have an Apple Watch or a Whoop or something that's starting to measure. And this is becoming a bigger and bigger trend. And I absolutely love the fact that we are now monitoring how we sleep and how much deep sleep. This is a huge emphasis for me in my life. I find I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and many entrepreneurs, this is something that is very deficient in their deep sleep. So we would like to figure out what is our baseline for deep sleep, and then also how can we improve it. Ultimately, as you improve your deep sleep, you are anti-aging. You are improving this on a cellular level, the human function in the human body. And what does that really mean to you? Deep sleep is when you get the most oxygen back into your tissues, your organs, specifically your glands and your brain. And that is when we anti-age. That is helping their mitochondria, instead of break down, it helps them build back up. So number one here, are you tired? And as a result, are we creating this tiredness, not because we're just lacking energy, but because we're inhibiting the function of the human body? All right, number 2 is toxic. Of course, we have to talk about this. So toxicity, hands down, is something that can make us tired. When we think about toxicity, I want to think of 2 things. One, there's the chemicals that are coming into our body, or really anything that comes into the human body that wasn't designed for human consumption or for human use. And nowadays, there is a plethora of this. We've done entire podcasts on just forever chemicals. Every single one of us, even with amazing diets and really good disciplines with your nutrition, you're still being exposed to massive levels of toxicities, whether it be through our cell phone use or through the clothes that we wear, the bedding that we have. Massive cellular toxins coming into us on a cellular level. So we have to at least acknowledge and address that. So, and that is why at least 1 or 2 times a year, you bring your body through some type of cleansing phase. So we kick one off on January 2nd. We do our annual cleanse. It's a perfect time of the year to rehabilitate the systems, organs, and glands of detoxification. So, and again, hear me closely, because many of you already have good diets. I get that. But to go to that next level, very much like your car, if you drive a car, even if whether you're driving, I don't care what it is, maybe like a Chevy Pinto or a Pinto, I don't even know if they make those anymore, I don't think they do, or a Mercedes, you always put the right gas in it, and always, at some point, if you're taking care of your car, you change the oil. You cleanse out the old that you've been using up, and then you put back in something fresh. The human body deserves that as well. We have to have a time through the course of the year, probably a couple times would be best, where we literally clean out the body, refresh everything, revamp how the detoxification system works. So that moves me into the second part of being toxic. Many of you have run into this roadblock where you eat good, you're exercising, you're doing a lot of the good habits, but you still aren't expressing health or energy on the way that you would think when you're just doing the math. I'm eating good, I'm exercising, I'm going to bed on time, I'm doing a lot of these newer good health habits. You might be doing a lot of these different biohacking strategies, which are absolutely fantastic, yet you find yourself still deficient in health. And one of the bigger reasons is because your detox pathways are not open. Clinically, especially in the functional medicine world, this is something we're always looking at root cause. And this is a very common challenge that we come across, that your detox pathways, your ability to eliminate toxins coming in, or even the byproduct of your good foods coming in, it's hard for your body to eliminate those. How do we see that? We see clogged gallbladders. Listen, what is it, 700,000 gallbladders are removed every single year? That's an insanity. That's a detoxification issue. We have more gut issues, leaky gut. We have bloating, SIBO. We have IBS. All of these different conditions, those are phase 3 detoxification issues, meaning we're not getting toxins out of our body. And this is a problem. So even clean eating oftentimes isn't enough, and that's where we can use supplementation. That's where we can use programs. My speaking tour last year and continued into this upcoming year, I'm out there teaching functional medicine doctors about gut health, adrenal health, how to help the body remove these toxins and also become better at absorbing our nutrients. So when it comes to toxins, so again, that is one of the biggest causes of not having energy, is because we have too many toxins. And then we'll get into this third part, which is called deficiencies. So I'm simplifying this topic. We could literally spend hours talking about this, but we're going to talk about these 3 things: that you're tired, you are toxic, or you are deficient. And let's talk about the deficiencies. And this is where I'd say that most people fall into this category as well. Number one, the tired part, maybe you're allotting enough time. Maybe it's not the highest quality. Maybe we need to improve toxicities and deficiencies, but tired is the easy one in terms of allotting time. When it comes to the toxicities, we all are probably, everyone listening to this podcast is probably already improving their abilities to limit the amount of toxins. We got to keep going. There's so many, there's EMF and all that stuff, but we got to continue to do that. Increase the ability to get rid of toxins. Remember, your body just doesn't open up the door and say everybody out. There's a very methodical process that the body uses in its ability to detox, meaning that there's a capability that your body has or does not have to carry toxins out. So your body, very specifically, as a backup system, it'll use things like your liver and your fat cells to essentially store your toxins. So as you're bringing in toxins over and over and over again, your body's doing its absolute best in phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 of detoxification. If the burden of all these toxins coming in is too high, one of the ways that your body will protect it is by developing or storing those into the fat around the liver, which we call fatty liver disease. And one of the most prevalent things that we're seeing right now in functional medicine is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, where your body is literally just storing up toxins. What we often forget is that is also why a fat cell continues to grow. They don't necessarily multiply in numbers, they grow in size because they continue to store not only excess nutrients, and usually we can burn up those, but it is they're storing these processed foods, these chemicals that we continue to push into our body. So part of your immune system, part of the innate wisdom and the intelligence within the body goes, no, I don't want this circulating through the system. I don't want those poisons going to your heart and going to your brain, into these vital organs. So it stuffs it into a fat cell. And the body will allow those toxins to be leached out of a fat cell as the body is prepared to do so. If your detox mechanisms are not reestablished, if they're not healthy, phase 1, phase 2, pooping, the simplicity of good liver function, of getting things out of your body, if they're not ready, your body's just going to hold those toxins into the cell, into your fat cells. All right, so moving on here from, that's toxins. Number 3 is deficiencies. Again, tired, toxic, or deficient. These are the reasons. If you don't have all the energy you want, it's one of these 3 reasons, probably a combination. So number 3 is deficiencies. And the simple part might be that you're just not putting enough good, high quality, high dense nutrient foods into your body on a regular basis. Regular basis is the key here. Being on the front line again, I ask the questions on a regular basis. How's your diet doing? Are you taking good care of yourself? Are you putting good foods into your body? Yes. And most of the time, the answer that I'll get is the response of, I'm doing pretty good, doc. And I'll say, all right, do me a favor. Just go ahead and tell me what you've eaten over the last 2-3 days. And as they go through that, I recognize not just what they're eating, but what they're not eating. And what we're looking for, really, quite frankly, when we're talking about building up a human body, there's a balance here. Are we putting enough building blocks? Are we putting enough amino acids, essentially your good, high-quality, organic, grass-fed type proteins into the body? And are we getting enough essential fatty acids? And more often than not, I would say the answer is no across the board. Should we be probably eating some animal source of protein every day? Most likely. And I don't say that just because I have a personal preference. And yes, it works great for my body. But clinically, I find that more people that take animal proteins out of their diet eventually are deficient in energy. And there's a couple of reasons, I believe, for that. One of the reasons, they take out the animal proteins and move into more of a carbohydrate-centric diet. And so I'm not knocking vegetables when I'm saying they move to carbohydrates, which do not have the building blocks. They don't have the essential fatty acids. They don't have the essential amino acids. Can we do a little bit of both? Absolutely. We still need to keep it clean. So in the toxicity, when it comes to our nutrients, remember, if it's not coming from God's garden, if it's not a one ingredient, whole food, organic, then it has toxins in it. So should everything always be organic all the time? Absolutely. And don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Don't give them a list of the good ones and the bad ones. If it's not organic, we are succumbing to the fact that there are toxins in it and we are accepting putting them in their body. And the acceptance level of that should be absolutely 0. I understand it happens on occasion, but to accept it should not be on the acceptable list. All right. So moving on here to deficiencies. So we'll break this down into 2 categories as well. One, we simply might not be putting them into our body. The beauty is, that is why supplementation can be so powerful and so effective, and it really helps you cut the line. So often people will ask me, it's the same thing for myself every day. People ask me, do I take supplements? Yes, I take a lot of them. Most of my colleagues, the functional medicine doctors, the people that I know that have the absolute best habits are taking copious amounts of supplementation because it allows us to supplement, it helps us detox, it allows us to supplement with the nutrients we might not be getting or that we haven't been receiving for the last decade, 2, 3, or 4. Remember, we're trying to make up as well as we're trying to move forward fast. We're trying to, speed up the anti-aging process and maybe slow down or inhibit some of the bad habits and bad health policies that we had in the past. So number 1 is maybe we're not getting the good foods in. So for example, we talked about the Krebs cycle earlier. The Krebs cycle, man, this thing of it, a big pot. We're putting all these vitamins and nutrients. And the Krebs cycle very specifically needs very specific things like B1 and B2 and B12. And without these B vitamins, you're not going to produce ATP. You're not going to produce good nutrients. I say that with such caution because I want to tell you this. I do not want anyone to rush out and go ahead and just start taking copious amounts of synthetic B vitamins. Here's where it gets a little tricky. If you're taking a B complex right now, good choice. Yet, if it is not a whole food source, a trusted whole food source, not just a label on the body, you're able to see the ingredients that make up those B vitamins. You could actually be doing more harm than good. because if you put in fake ones, your body then has to break those down as well, and often are perceived as a toxin, not as a natural element. So what are some of the whole food sources, some of the best food sources of your B vitamins, which are critical, literally critical for us to be able to make ATP? Things like eggs, a phenomenal source of B vitamins. Grass-fed meat, red meat, fantastic. Good grass-fed burger, absolutely fantastic. So again, we'll see if we're using whole foods, we can often fulfill the need for our nutrients. Although most of us, our diets are very specific. We have a small group of foods that we like, and then a whole big group of foods that we rarely eat. So with that being said, that's where supplementation can support our bodies, again, as a supplement, not as the driving force of this is where I'm only going to get my nutrients and my diet's going to be crap. So we're not supplementing a bad diet whatsoever. Here's the other part of nutrient deficiencies. There's a likelihood that you're eating good. There's also a likelihood that your body has been beat up in such a way that it is not very efficient anymore at absorbing your nutrients. So listen to this part close, because oftentimes people are seeking higher levels of health. Maybe they've run into some disease processes or patterns in their life, and that's why they're seeking health. So they say, man, there's something wrong here. And you go to your practitioner, maybe you're a functional medicine doctor like myself, and you're saying, yeah, we have these nutrient deficiencies and we're going to utilize these different supplements. But prior to do that, we also have to repair and replenish your ability to absorb nutrients. And I want to back up just a little bit and give you a little bit more anatomy and physiology and understand what happens here. So through the course of your entire life, your nutrients and your toxins are competing to land in what's called a receptor site on your cell. Think of those receptor sites as little baseball gloves, and your nutrients are the baseball. So in the event that, so every cell has its receptor sites, and different cells have different receptors and a different volume of receptors, baseball gloves, that it's looking for different types of nutrients. So for example, years ago, we discovered that almost every cell in the human body had all these vitamin D receptors. And that is when the science world goes, wow, vitamin D is probably more important than we thought. If every single cell has a receptor for vitamin D, maybe we need more vitamin D. And then we discovered that that was some truth right there. The challenge here is this. So Ian, this is a good example. This is random, but good example of vitamin D. A lot of you are out there taking vitamin D, and yet you get your results back and you're still low in vitamin D. Here's why. The baseball glove could be filled up of toxins, and it won't receive the vitamin D into the baseball glove because it's already full. There's already a stone in there. Let's not call it a baseball. There's already full of junk. And therefore now you do not absorb your nutrients well. So there's receptors out there for your hormones, for progesterone, for testosterone, all of the above. And when you do your functional tests, especially if you're testing hormones in saliva, which is the most accurate, if you're doing, even your labs will help you out with this, but your blood work will help out with this. But what if you discover that you're low in these hormones? We immediately think, oh, I need to plug back in more testosterone. I need to plug back in more progesterone and estrogen. That is the reason I have no energy. No, it maybe those are reasons or ways you can get yourself healthier. But first and foremost, recognize that your body is this brilliant machine. But if these receptors, these little baseball gloves, are full of junk, toxins, heavy metals, parasite debris, viruses, bacteria, forever chemicals, glyphosate, all of these different things, which we're exposed to on a daily basis. If these baseball gloves are full and we are not putting in the practice of detoxification, fundamentally simple things like intermittent fasting. And listen, do I care if you have a cup of coffee or a glass of water or some bone broth while you're intermittent fasting? No, that has nothing to do with the bigger picture here of helping you clear out these receptor sites. As we don't bring anything in, we give the body opportunity. So that's when you're working with a functional medicine doctor, someone who's looking for root causes. They're going to help you do some level of detoxification, antioxidants, NMN, NAD. We're hearing so much of how these are helping glutathione. We're helping the body start to detoxify, clear out these receptor sites, improve phase 3 of detoxification, so we then can start to absorb our nutrients better. And yes, folks, hopefully you're recognizing this is a journey. This is a process. It doesn't happen. Oh, I tried that. I did this and it didn't work. No, this is a journey of helping the body become the best version of yourself. So we're going to go all the way back to square one here. If you don't have the amount of energy that you'd like to have, and I encourage everyone to go for more energy, the experience you have in this short time that we call life here on earth will 100% be based upon how much energy you have to experience it. Your ability to say yes more often, to go on the family vacation, to have a meetup with your friends or family after work, to be able to dive into new work projects, to be able to have a long day at work, but also have time for your family and your children, your dogs, whatever it may be at home. That's all going to require energy. And if you're lacking energy to do those things, either tired, toxic, or deficient, you work on those three things and it will change your life. All right, my friends, hopefully you have enjoyed this episode of the Health Made Simple Show. Let me go back just a little bit and tell you that Krebs cycle. We talked about the B vitamins. I kind of told you not to take the synthetic ones. There are a couple that I do recommend. And as you know, I don't necessarily have any sponsors that I really boast about or talk about on the show, but there are certain products that I do use in clinic, and I'll share those ones here. So for your B vitamins, probably my absolute favorite, and it is one of the ones that I use, is something called Cataplex B Core. And again, some of the best sources of B vitamins that we can get, because this is one of the most efficient B vitamins or vitamins that inhibits Krebs cycle function. And when you can't make ATP, what do? You lean into needing stimulants. So if you need to lean into that cup of coffee, we need to lean into that Red Bull or that stimulant drink, or even you're heavily relying on things like rhodiola or different ginseng or different herbs, and you need them. Otherwise, you don't have enough energy. Most likely, you got to go back to the drawing board and look at these three things. Are you tired? Are you toxic? Are you deficient? My favorite B vitamins are something called Cataplex B Core. We'll put that in the show notes for you. And I appreciate all of you being here today. Keep doing your thing. Keep sharing out. Keep spreading up. I promise you, someone in your family, one of your friends, one of your colleagues, they would love to learn a little bit about how to achieve more health. Keep doing your thing. Of course, we're going to take deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. That'll be awesome.